love a good reading challenge? Do you want to gamify your reading? Welcome to the Reader's Gauntlet. Over the past couple months, I have learned that I like to read what I like to read, and I also just like to have a silly, goofy, fun little time. I like to make things easy. This is my escapism, this is my hobby, and I like to have fun. Now, I love a good challenge, but I also wanted to do so in a way that allowed a little bit more freedom in what I read and let me actually pick what I wanted to read. So that brought me to creating the Reader's Gauntlet. This is essentially a bingo board made up of a bunch of individual challenges. So whether you choose to do a complete blackout or you just pick a couple of items, it is completely up to you because this is the Reader's Gauntlet, and it is up to you to decide what your challenge shall be. Now, a couple housekeeping things out of the way. I will leave timestamps in the description down below for the individual prompts as well as some of the other things that we'll discuss. We're going to talk about the prompts, how this reading challenge actually works, and we'll talk about some of the graphics that I've made. I also want to let it be known that regardless of whatever genre that you read, you can definitely adapt this challenge to fit your specific reading needs, whether it's fantasy, romance, non-fiction, hats off to you if it is, mystery, thriller, or if you read a blend of literally everything. This can definitely be adapted to fit your needs because this challenge is all about reading what we want in a fun, gamified way. Now, I personally will be starting this readathon in December, but if you choose to start in January as a year-long readathon, that kind of makes most sense. The whole point of this readathon is just to be as flexible and to put a little bit more creativity behind how you read what you read, but it does not control what or when you read. So this readathon is a bingo board that is made up of a ton of different individual challenges. You can choose to do as many of the individual challenges as you want to. You could do all of them. You could do a handful of them. This is truly up to you. Now, you are going to be able to reuse books for different prompts in this challenge. Say you read a book that has a Z in the title, but that's also a standalone. You could put it in both of those two places. For regular mode, you could use a book twice across two different prompts. For easy mode, you could use the book for any prompt as many times as you want. And then for hard mode, you can only use a book once. So that brings us to another point about this readathon. You do not have to complete the full readathon to consider it as completed. The point of the readathon is to maybe get out of your comfort zone with how you choose to pick up your next book, but it's not necessarily supposed to be changing up the individual books that you read. So you want to look at your existing TBR, and hopefully this reading challenge will help you pick out your books in a little bit more of a fun way. So I think the best way to explain how this readathon works is going to be to go through the individual challenges, starting with number one. We have the series staircase. The goal for this challenge is to read series. Now, you can make this as easy for yourself or as hard for yourself as you want. I personally will be reading a standalone, a duology, a trilogy, a quartet, and then a pentology, basically series that have increasing lengths as you continue on. You could choose to read a singular series. You could choose to do that. You could choose to do a singular series. I want it to be as inclusive towards different genres as I possibly could. There's always going to be some limitations, but if you're someone who doesn't read a genre that has a ton of series, or if you're someone who just doesn't have any series on your TBR, you could also change this to kind of an author's backlist where you can consider all of an author's works as a series. So you could pick one author and read several books by them. Prompt number two is arguably the longest challenge because it is the alphabet challenge. This challenge is not anything new or special or unique. However, it can be challenging because there are 26 letters in the English alphabet. You are going to read a book with the letters A through Z in either the title, or you could also do the author's name. I will personally be trying to read the full alphabet. If you wanted to do a little bit easier version, you could read just the letter A and then you could skip to the letter Z and just do the two books. You could do this literally however. I'm not your dad. Our next prompt is the library challenge. I'm someone who loves to support my local library whenever I can for a multitude of reasons. Obviously, I want to support a library, but B, I want to support good book buying habits and not necessarily buy every single book that I read. So if you do not have access to a library, you could also choose to borrow a book from a friend. You could borrow it from KU. You could read a used book, anything that kind of gets you out of a brand new book buying habit. Now, when we talk about difficulty modes, for regular challenges like this that don't have necessarily specified number of book, regular mode is going to be 3 books. If you want to do easy mode, you can do 1. If you want to do hard mode, you could do like 5. You could do 10 if you're feeling crazy. However, again, it is completely up to you what challenge you set for yourself, but you're picking out your book in a fun way. Then we get to the new to you authors prompt. You want to read books by authors you have never read from before. I will be attempting to try out 3 new authors. I will be attempting to try out more than 3 new authors, but I will be using 3 for this challenge. If you want to do 1, you could do easy mode to do 1. If you want to do more than that, you're more than welcome to do more. Then we have a scavenger hunt. Doing a scavenger hunt has been one of the most fun ways I have personally found to pick my next book. You start with your most recent book read. So for me, if I'm doing this for my first book of 2026, I will start with the final book that I read in 2025. I will draw a prompt. Maybe that prompt will say read a book that has more pages. I will go through my TBR and find a book that has more pages than that book. And then for the book that I find, I will pick another prompt, and maybe that prompt is read a book with the same color on the cover. So I'll go through my TBR. Let's say this book was red. I'll go through my TBR and find another red book. You'll kind of just go hunt around. You can use as many prompts as you want, as few prompts as you want, until you end up on your final prompt, and that will be your final book, and that will be the book that wins the scavenger hunt. For the individual clues that you're going to use on this hunt, you could definitely choose to use your own. I will also be giving you an example list both in the description box down below, and then we'll get into the graphics here in a little bit. Then we have the trope tracker. I am choosing to do a 9-square bingo board, and your goal will be to read books with those tropes. At the time of filming this, I have not solidified the tropes that I will be reading. However, they will definitely be in the graphics, and they will also be in the description box down below. But these are things like trials, fated mates, enemies to lovers, forced proximity. I don't know if I'm gonna force proximity. Why didn't I think that one sooner? You get the vibe. That can be changed up depending on the genre that you use. If tropes exist in every genre, however, you can definitely choose to interpret that as subjects. So again, you can make it as flexible. I'm not your dad. Then we have the new release Radar. I will be trying to read in 2026. Every month, I want to read a new release that happened in that month. In January, I will read a book that released in January, and then in February, I will try to, in the same month, read a book that released in February. That's kind of hard mode. However, if you wanted to make this a little bit easier, you could read the book whenever, but do one for each month. You could also just choose to read new releases at the time of that you're checking off that bingo board. It's kind of up to you how you want to interpret it. My goal personally is that the last 2 years, realistically speaking, have had a really hard time with actually picking up the new releases as they come out. So I'm hopeful that this challenge will give me a little bit of a push. It'll give me a little bit of oomph to pick out new releases as they come out and while they're still hyped for them. Our next challenge is the pretty cover challenge. Whether you choose to use a special edition, whether you choose to use a regular edition that you just think is pretty, I like a pretty book. The amount of dopamine that hits you is pretty unreal. I just did a TBR takedown episode in which I read some pretty books and I had so much fun, so we were definitely going to be doing that this year. Our next square is bingeable books. These are the books that you just cannot put down. Generally, you read them in one sitting and they're fast paced and they're just fun and you couldn't put them down. These are books that consumed you. So regular mode's gonna be 3 books, easy mode 1, hard mode 5. Then we have the intimidation triangle. And the default mode is 3 books. You wanna read 3 books off of your physical TBR that are intimidating to you. Ideally a physical TBR, but if you're a crazy person who is crazy good and don't actually have a physical TBR, maybe these are just 3 books in general that intimidate you. Or maybe you don't really care about your physical TBR, you're like, I'm gonna get to those later. Read 3 books that are new to you that you maybe don't already own, that are a little scary to you, so you haven't picked them up yet. This is your time. Then we have the shelf trophy bingo square. I did a TBR takedown episode kind of earlier this year in which I read the new books that I desperately wanted to get my hands on and I wanted to buy them, but I knew that I needed to read them before I bought them. And I'm so glad that I did. And I felt like that would be a really fun way to not only, again, practice good book buying habits, but also if you like the books and then you order them in the mail, the feeling that you get whenever you receive your books and you finally put your hands on a book that you absolutely loved. Unmatched. Maybe there's a special edition coming out. You want to make sure that you like it before you order the special edition. Another book in the series is coming out. You want to make sure that you like the series before you get the next book. Maybe it's getting traditionally published and the indie edition is going out of print. Or you just really wanted to buy a book. If you actually have access to borrow the book before you buy it, then is what this challenge is for. Then we have the spinner wheel. This is, again, pretty self-explanatory. You put a couple books on a spinner wheel and whatever wins, you read that. In order to get to 3 books on this challenge, you're going to do the spinner wheel 3 times and whichever wins from each spinner wheel roll, you read that, and then that's your spinner wheel book, and then you do that again, and then you roll the spinner wheel, and then you get a book, and then you put that on, and then you roll the spinner wheel, and then you put it on, and there's your 3 books. Then instead of doing a free space on this bingo board, I decided to be a little bit evil. You could also do a free space if you really wanted to, but again, I just am feeling evil. We, together, collectively, you and I, are going to read every day for 30 days straight. Sometimes I get so overwhelmed by what do I want to read next that I end up just not, I don't read, and then I sit down and I doom scroll. So we're going to avoid that. We are going to, for 30 days, continuous straight days, read a book. It doesn't matter how much you read, it's just the fact that you did read. If you miss a day in there, hard mode, you restart the 30 days over. Easy mode, you don't, you just move on. We have physical TBR. We keep this pretty generic here because we are just going to read 3 books from your physical TBR. 1 book if you're doing easy mode, 5 books if you're doing hard mode. You just want to read your physical TBR. You bought the books for a reason. You picked them out for a reason. Hopefully you're gonna like them. And if not, get rid of them. And make room for more fun things. Then we have play a TBR game. You can copy the TBR game from a booktuber that you love. You can do a TBR jar. You can do another spinner wheel. You could do another scavenger hunt. The options are pretty endless here, whether you do a monthly TBR, whether you do a weekly TBR, but you put a list of books together in a fun way, other than just kind of like thinking and writing them down and be done with it. If you're like me and you don't really stick to a TBR, that's okay. You played a game and that was the whole point. And then we have booktubers Rex. So you want to go to your favorite booktuber, you're going to watch some of their videos and you're going to find a recent either 4 or bonus points for a 5-star. I would say do a 5-star because like I ain't trying to read my next not 5-star. I would recommend picking from their recent faves that is most reflective of their current taste. Option 1. Now option 2, you can pick a book that they inspired you to read. There are quite a few books on my TBR that I can attribute directly to a person. I bought this book and I wanted to read this book because of this one person. this is your prompt. Now you can do one, but I am a little biased here. So I would do 3 to 5 different booktubers. We love booktube here. Ideally, you do want to pick recs from different people though. The next one I think is really fun. You're going to participate in another readathon, whether that's Romantasy-a-thon, Rebellion Readathon, Realmathon, Escape the Readathon. Our Fantasy Bingo Cache just put out a Romantasy Bingo. There are infinite options here, but the whole goal is to participate in another fun readathon. Then we have the subgenres of choice challenge. You're going to pick your main genre, probably fantasy, and then you're going to pick subgenres. So whether you do a generic romance fantasy, dystopian fantasy, sci-fi fantasy, you could do a fairy tale retelling fantasy, you could do an urban fantasy. I personally will be doing hard mode on this prompt, and I will be doing 5 subgenres. As long as you do multiple, so that way you can actually count for the subgenres. That's a win. Next we have by the hundreds. You're going to read books in increasing increments of 100. So a book that's 100 pages being 100 to, 199, then you're going to read a book that's 200 pages long being 200 to 299. Can you tell it's late in the evening? You get the point. You want to read a book that's 100 pages long, 200 pages long, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 700 pages long. You can choose how many increments you want to do. If you only want to do 3 to 600, you can. I'm going to try to do all of them, but we're here to have fun. We're here for a good time, not a long time. So if you don't want it to take a long time, you don't have to. Next, we have the rainbow challenge. So you're going to read a book for every color of the rainbow. You've got Roy G. Biv. It does not matter the percentage of the book that is that color. It just matters that it's a prominent feature. Example here being When the Moon Hatched. It's got some brown, like tree branch looking leaves, and there's a little bit of green on here. I would not call this a green book. I would not call this a brown book. This is definitely a black and blue book, right? You with me here? Okay. However, Leigh Bardugo's The Familiar. This red arm is actually a pretty prominent feature. While there's not a ton of red on it, I would say the red's kind of sticking out to me. So I questionably could use that for the red entry. But again, I'm not your dad. Do whatever you want. Then we have the blurb challenge. Now, most every book will have a blurb from another author, meaning either up here on the top or on the back of it, you'll have a quote from another author recommending this book. So When the Moon Hatched has a blurb from Raven Kennedy that says, an absolutely stunning fantasy world. So since Raven Kennedy blurbed this, I would then go pick up another Raven Kennedy. In this instance, I have a series right here that I really need to continue on with by Raven Kennedy. So I'd go pick up the Raven Kennedy book. You do that 1 time, 3 times, or 5 times. Live your best life. Then we have poll pick. You're gonna have a couple different books and you somehow are gonna put a vote to it. So whether you post it on your own Instagram, whether you post it in a Discord, whether you have your mom, your cat, your dog, your dad, you could DM me. Have someone pick from your options of books and you are going to read the book that they picked or the book that won the vote. Then we have creature feature. This is something that I love a good creature in books, and I especially love when books have all of the creatures, but I especially love creatures in general. We're talking
about vampires, werewolves, monsters, zombies, sorcerers, beasties, or time-traveling romances. And if I had an hour alone with Robert Pattinson, he would forget all about Skinny Legs McGee, I'll tell you that much. I will put the particular creatures, again, I haven't quite figured that out yet, what I'm going to do. I'll put the particular creatures in the description box down below. We'll get into the graphics here in just a second, but I will give you a Canva link to all the graphics. So if you choose to make a copy to enter different prompts, good on ya. Our second to last prompt on here is going to be a 24-hour readathon. However you want to do this readathon, there's about a million ways. Whether you want to read for 24 hours straight without sleeping, would not recommend. If you want to set it to a timer, if you just want to read over the course of 2 days, make it a weekend readathon. If you've never done one before, they are so fun. But it's also so interesting to kind of put a time component in with your reading just to see how long it takes you. It kind of makes you understand your reading better. But it also makes you pick books for your TBR for the 24-hour period a little bit differently than you might otherwise. And then our very last challenge on this bingo board is going to be to complete a personal goal. Whether your personal goal is to read a certain number of books, if it's to read a certain number off of your physical TBR, if it's to only buy so many books, if it is to read so many books from KU, if it is to read so many books from the library, if it's to read so many pages across the year, if you want to do a certain number of readathons, maybe a reading goal is to focus on diversity, and you wanted to read a certain number of queer, BIPOC, marginalized authors in general, disability rep, quite literally anything you want to make this. If you just want to keep your reading year fun, that technically could also be a goal. It's not measurable. I think it could still work in this case. Ideally, you would make your goals measurable, but again, live your best life. Whatever it is, I wanted to create a free space on here so that if there was a different challenge, even outside of any of these, if you wanted to enter a different challenge, you could. I wanted to leave some freedom in here because, again, we are reading whatever the heck we want in 2026. Now, that actually brings me to the end of the bingo board and to the end of the challenges. So let's quickly talk about the graphics. There are some options with the graphics here. So I personally do a reading journal every year. I wanted to create something where I could print off the graphics, but then also be able to use my Canon
Ivy printer and put the books on top of the blank graphics and kind of fill them out, make them a little bit more interactive that way. I personally think that is so much fun. So I did size a set of these graphics to be a 5x7. Whether you print it off on your home printer, you go to Staples, you print them off, you go to Walmart or Walgreens or wherever you get your photos printed, you get those, you paste it in a journal. That is option number one. I also have some Instagram story size ones, but these graphics are going to be how you track your progress. I'm someone who also really love a pretty book cover. I love to be able to put pictures of books. So if you keep just a digital journal, you could put these here as well, but there will be a little square. But I'm designing all of these graphics to be kind of the regular mode. There will be 3 books for all of the prompts that require 3 books, and I'll do, I think, 5 for the subgenres tracker and probably 5 for the creature feature as well. I'll put blank spaces where you could then paste or put all of the books. The 5x7 will be sized so that if you're on a Canon Ivy printer or some other printer that does 2x3 prints, if you do 4 book covers for that little page, those will go on there. And then for one of the larger graphics like the A to Z challenge, if you do 16 covers per 2x3, they will be really, really small, but they will be on there and they'll be really stinking cute, and they'll be very cute and mini. I'm very excited about those. So we have officially made it to the end of this announcement video. I would love to have your participation in whatever way you see fit for yourself. I felt like there was going to be no better name for this readathon, given that a gauntlet is your own personal challenge, and this is the reader's challenge. It is up to the reader to make this reading challenge as easy or as difficult as they want to, but the whole point is to make your reading as fun as possible. I'm putting the power in your hands to choose your own reader's gauntlet. I think this is going to be such a fun reading challenge. I think it's going to give me all of the checkbox dopamine, and I hope it will do the same for you. If you have made it to the end of this video, go ahead and like this video, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel for future reading vlogs tackling some of these challenges. Anyways, thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you have a great rest of your day or night wherever you are, and I will catch you in the next one.